Revenge, Book 2 in the New World series. Written by Stephen Llewelyn and performed by Chris Barrie.
Joining the corridor again, Douglas felt doubly grateful to Hemmings. Not only had she saved him from being smashed into the bulkhead, tragically at the cost of her own life, but had she not forced him into that small room, he would probably have fallen to his death when the ship tipped over the edge of the escarpment. After such a shocking upheaval, he could be in little doubt about what had happened now, if he could only guess at the cause. The corridor now facing him was about 15 meters or so in length, but owing to its current orientation, that 15 meters was now almost straight down. Douglas looked across the corridor to another open doorway opposite. The distance to the other room may only have been a couple of meters, but the drop yawning below him was like stepping across a lift shaft without the elevator. Clearly his options were limited, so he backed up ready to take the jump. 1, 2, 3 steps and leap. Landing awkwardly in the threshold, he grappled for dear life to find a handhold. Douglas had jumped cautiously, not wishing to enter the room without knowing its size. If the room was large, he might face another long drop. The room was full of thick, swirling dust, making it difficult to discern its dimensions. With a cough, he pulled his shirt up over his mouth and nose. Gradually, the billowing murk settled, allowing him to see the space before him. As the air cleared, the weak light from the corridor permeated further, and Douglas became dimly aware of the opposite wall. But that was not all. The reason there was so much dust in this area was because of the gaping crack in the outer hull of the ship. The room was small enough to be traversable, and, carefully lowering himself down to his floor, which was actually a wall, he made his way towards the outer hull. Climbing up the other side, he looked out into a night obscured by thick dust and debris. He had almost no idea where he was. A sigh had him coughing again. Once his breathing was under control, he fancied he could hear movement from back within the ship. He had to go. Stepping through a tear in the inner hull, he stumbled across a couple of meters of honeycomb fuselage wall, careful not to trip over the various layers of jagged multi-laminate armor. Optical cabling, hanging from a gash in the darkness, stroked his head, making him jerk away and lose his foot down a conduit void. He snatched a fistful of the cabling and hung on, swinging while he tried to extricate his foot. He calmed himself. Stepping outside, with no idea of where he was in relation to the ground, sounded extremely dangerous. But then, so did the shouting and shuffling from the bottom of the corridor behind him. Gleason opened a comm channel as the new world lurched to one side.
"This is Gleason to Baines. Come in. Gleason to Baines. Captain?"
He waited, but no response came.
"Gleason to anyone aboard the New World. Come in."
The seconds passed like hours for the small team in the armored personnel carrier, when the comm crackled to life. "Commander, this is Baines. We need to put down immediately. Team up with Corporal Thomas's squad and get to a safe distance."
"But Captain, what about Captain Douglas?"
Gleason's team could almost hear Baines clenching her teeth as she answered, "I'm not giving up on him, but they may have other attack ships still out on patrol. If they have, it would be better for you if you were somewhere else. You won't stand a chance against an aerial attack. We can reassess when we know more."
"Understood, Captain. And you're right. We heard a ship lift off immediately before we hit their camp. As the shuttle's still here, there must be another. The fact that we heard it take off through the canopy and in the middle of a stampede suggests that it's something powerful and dangerous. Are you in good enough shape to land, Captain?"
Again, they could almost hear Baines's grimace. "We'll keep you appraised, Commander. We're heading back towards the pod, but we'll have to put down before we reach it. I'm sending you the coordinates of our planned landing area. If there's another attack ship out there, you won't have time to help James, and you won't do any of us any good if you get yourselves killed. I'm ordering you to head for the coordinates I've provided. We may well need you. And Commander, thank you, all of you, for your outstanding courage and exemplary work. Good luck. Baines out."
"Good luck, Captain."
Gleason closed the channel, uncharacteristically subdued. No one spoke as they watched the new world limp away. Once she was out of sight, Gleason nodded to O'Brien.
"Open a short-range encrypted comm channel to Thomas." "Whoa!
Douglas could not help crying out as he slid down the outer hull, falling into a black abyss with no points of reference but the sheer wall he was sliding down was terrifying. Desperately, he clawed at the side of the ship to slow his descent. He only fell about 5 meters, his outstretched reach from the crack in the hull bringing the distance down to less than 3, but it felt a lot further to a man falling blind. He used whatever wits he had left to keep his legs bent and braced for landing. His leap of faith was crazy, he knew it, but his only other choice was recapture. In the light of what had been unleashed upon his captors, not to mention his subsequent escape, he was suddenly very unsure of his welcome, especially as he suspected Jill Baines might be behind their current misfortune. However, fortune can favour the bold, as the saying goes, and his daring was rewarded with a relatively soft landing. The warship's slide down the hill had churned and turned the earth over, providing a spongy, uncompacted loam to break his fall. Added to the inclination of the bank, his soft landing turned irresistibly into a roll that took the remaining energy out of his fall. Winded, but in one piece, Douglas knew he had to move fast. There were clearly survivors within the ship, and he had no wish to run into them. The air was still thick with dust, making it hard to breathe, but at least direction was not a problem. He simply had to climb. It took several minutes to scramble up the promontory, coughing and sliding all the way. He could not help thinking the enemy must really be in a bad way, or he would surely have been picked up, or more worryingly, picked off by now. Cresting the top, he stumbled across many animal corpses, mostly mares. He recognized them even in the starlight. Saddened, he mourned the innocent lives destroyed because of these people's actions. In the distance, he could hear the moan of what sounded like a diesel engine. The New World had no diesel plant. They would have been useless in the thin Martian atmosphere. He could only suspect the return of an enemy scout party. Thinking quickly, he looked around for inspiration. He needed to get away, certainly, but which way? Looking across the remnants of the Nazi enclosure, he spotted one fortuitous piece of serenity, still standing amid the devastation. Nestled in the far corner, glowing dimly under starlight, was his shuttle. Douglas looked up at those same stars, offering a silent thank you. The little ship had clearly been far enough from whatever had happened to survive in one piece. Scanning the plateau, he marveled at the destruction his people had wrought. It looked like the aftermath of a major stampede. What the hell did they do? More to the point, where are they now? If his people were the cause of all this, he knew they would not have left without him unless things had gone badly for them, and that filled him with anxiety. With little choice, he began picking his way across the compound when a deep growl made him stop. He listened, breathing shallowly. When the same deep growl wound up into a full-blown guttural roar, it made him run, and run like hell. The hair rose on the back of his neck as he bolted. Behind him, something out in the darkness had his scent, and by the bass rumble, it was a damn big something too. The frenetic energy of fear gave him wings, and he cleared the distance at a sprint. Collapsing against the shuttle's hatch, his chest heaving, but with no time to recover, he worked quickly to key his passcode. Nothing. He tried once more. Nothing again. Damn her! He could only surmise that during the days of his imprisonment, Schultz had taken the shuttle's computer systems apart, locking him out. He had provided the access codes for them to fly the shuttle as part of the deal to save Baines's life, and now all he could do was curse in vain. With nowhere else to go, Douglas threw himself under the little ship as the animal stalking him closed on his position. It slowed, hunting. Though it was too dark to see clearly, the creature was indeed massive, the stink of death and rotting flesh coming off it in waves, the calling card of a carnivore. Oh, crap. Douglas cursed inwardly, now terrified of making a sound. He slid further under the shuttle as silently as possible, while trying not to gag. He could hear two things. The closest, and most urgent, was the snuffling of animal tracking around the shuttle. Clearly, the beast sensed he was still close and was zeroing his position. The second sound his mind picked out of the night was the diesel engine again, but as the creature drew closer, the machine seemed to draw away. Douglas closed his eyes. silently raging against his situation, when a thought struck him. Rifling through his jacket pockets, he drew out the comm Hemmings had given him. Further searching revealed the data clip. He had no idea what was on it, but with the enemy battleship down and Hemmings dead, he reasoned that getting the information to the New World was more important than the risk of being caught. He decided to send the information on a maximum strength, coded frequency to increase the likelihood of the information arriving intact. More importantly, he decided to send it now, before the information died with him in the belly of a giant predatory dinosaur. Singh brought them in on what he fervently hoped would not be their final approach.
This is it, Captain. We're going in. Again. Hang on.
The New World tore across the starlit plain. Somnolent fauna scattered, while anchored flora bent double in obeisance to the sudden winds. Ground gave way to water in a dizzying rush as the ship pitched down towards 0 meters, waves rising to fill the vacuum in her wake. Blinding spray and white noise filled the air even before her landing gear touched the surface. Drag, generated by the starboard bow landing strut as it bit first, with no portside counterpart, twisted the ship off course. The rear supports dug in a fraction of a second later. Acting like keels, they kept her from spinning further out of control, but Singh had no way of straightening their diagonal aquaplane. The velocity necessary to reach their chosen soft landing site before they fell out of the sky was now working against them. She would have spun, nose down, straight into the lake, but he fired all her forward thrusters hard to reduce speed and hold course. The New World's hull kissed the surface on an almost flat trajectory, the water providing useful resistance so long as Singh could control the ship's yaw and consequent desire to pitch and roll. Ultimately, the balance he sought was unobtainable, so all he could do was minimize speed, minimize spin, minimize damage. He lowered the atmospheric wing flaps to maximum, creating further drag and dipping the nose. The 550-meter-long NASA ship USS New World hit the surface of the lake in a mostly controlled belly flop, creating a bow wave 100 meters high as she dug deeper into water that slowly soaked up her forward momentum. Not for the first time did Singh lament her lack of windscreen wipers as the far shoreline and, more worryingly, the far tree line began to fill their forward view screens. Even in the dim starlight, it was clear they were running out of lake. Upon reaching the shore, she gouged a channel up the beach that would have taken an army of navvies weeks, but carving through soil, sand and stones did shed further pace, eventually slowing them to a speed that could be considered merely dangerous, a marked improvement. However, the momentum created by tens of thousands of tons of New World was not easily halted, and Singh felt like he was trying to stop an actual world as he powered the forward thrusters to maximum, hoping to bring her to a full stop. Heart in his mouth, he thought they had made it, when a colossal, grinding, rending sound heralded their arrival at the tree line. He cringed, closing his eyes against the noise. Almost in slow motion now, the New World's bow cut a swathe into the trees 100 meters long, smashing giant redwoods to kindling and carving deep into the earth. The stop, when it came, lurched the crew against their crash webbing slightly, but was almost anticlimactic. Lacking Factory Pod 4 in her load area, the New World's spine arched over several hundred meters of plain, all the way to the edge of the lake, where her rear landing gear and engines sat in a riptide as the waters crashed back to their natural low point. The huge cutting, left by the ship's bow, now filled up like a canal beneath her belly. Singh cut power to the engines and killed all the screaming alarms, and after a few ragged false starts, began to breathe again. Into the sudden silence he said, "I think I may have set the forest on fire with the forward thrusters, after the bow wave ran on to flood the rest of the valley." The silence continued. He turned in his seat. "We seem to have dug deep into the earth as well." Baines removed her harness and approached him to stand with a proud hand on his shoulder. "Water, earth, and fire." Singh acknowledged with a stiff nod, his nerves still knotted. "I don't think I damaged the air, unless you count the oxygen burned when I set the trees alight. Baines forced herself to relax a little. Well done, Sandy. It could have been worse. So much worse. Everyone okay? Affirmation came from all quarters as the skeleton crew breathed a collective sigh of relief, all except Singh. Are you okay, Sandy? Baines asked again with concern. He nodded dumbly. I think she's in a bad way, Captain. The New World. Hero's going to... The comm binged, interrupting him. The captain leaned across him to acknowledge it. Baines? It's bad, Captain. A distraught male voice with an Italian accent began without preamble. Giorgio? Yes, Captain. Are you okay down there? Mostly. And Hero? Physically, maybe. He lowered his voice. He keeps repeating Sekai over and over again. The ship is very damaged, Captain. Are we talking hundreds of man-hours and gritty determination damaged, or are we talking never fly again damaged? This is preliminary and wildly speculative, but I reckon we've a month's work before we can even limp back to the pod, and that's with their help, and after they've manufactured the new parts we need. On the upside, I don't think she's dead, Captain, although she may never be space-worthy again. I'll know more when the chief, returns. Returns? Yes, Captain. It will be much easier to run a full ship-wide diagnostic with Hero's help. But I think he's in genuine shock. It was a good call to get almost everyone off the ship. Some areas got very badly bent in the crash, not to mention the battle damage from the shell that hit us. Of course, the downside is we got everyone off of the ship, so there's no one but us and your bridge crew to inspect her for damage. Understood, Giorgio. I'm glad you're both okay. That's the most important thing to me. Yes, Captain, likewise. Hero, on the other hand, well, I think he's going to need a friend. If you could make a damage assessment at your end, it will be a great help. Of course. We'll compare notes soon, but the first thing I need you to do is to check hull integrity. The last thing we need right now is an invasion of wildlife. Please keep us appraised. Baines, out. The Sarge unfastened his safety harness and was about to stand when he noticed an incoming comm channel.
Captain, we have a message.
Baines frowned. Who is it? Commander Gleason? Better acknowledge it, Sarge. Jackson spun in his seat, shock clearly registering on his face.
It's a data burst, Captain.
Baines could see something had rattled him. And? She asked darkly. His face split into a wide grin.
It's signed James Douglas.
One of the Major's security staff forwarded a hail, purporting to be from the New World, directly to his comm.
This is Major White speaking.
Major, this is Lieutenant Singh. We took damage during the attack and have crash-landed about 5 miles northwest of you. I'm sending you the coordinates now, sir. White's stomach felt like he had just swallowed a bowling ball.
Sandy, it's great to hear your voice, but crash-landed? Are you all okay?
Pretty much, sir. The New World is in a bad way, though.
Well, thank God you're all alive. And the mission? Was the battleship destroyed?
As far as we can tell, sir. In fact, the rest of the mission seemed to turn out more successfully than we could have hoped. White blew out his cheeks with relief.
That's fantastic news. I can't wait to hear all about it. But right now, how can we help?
We're going to need a large engineering team, sir. Captain Baines suggests waiting till daylight. She thought the bulldozer might be pressed into service if the adaptations to the cab are complete.
We'll make sure they are. Tonight. What's her plan?
Send the people and material we need in trucks. I'm forwarding you a list now, sir. They can follow the dozer as it clears a path. We'll need a roadway between us anyway. If we can patch the ship, it'll take a while, and we'll need a decent supply run. You should be able to ferry smaller items with the escape pods, but as I said, we'll almost certainly have to manufacture parts, a lot of parts, and much of it will be heavy. We'll have to move it by truck.
Any news from the ground crews, Lieutenant? Obviously, Commander Gleason's team got the job done, but are they on their way back?
They were safe and well when we left theater, Major. The captain ordered them, and the second team we deployed, to join up and make their way to our position here.
That's better news than we could have hoped for, Sandy.
He paused awkwardly.
But is there any news about Captain Douglas?
Singh surprised White by laughing.
Yes, sir. We received a coded transmission from him just minutes ago. He's alive and has somehow managed to get himself out of there.
Yes! White shouted, punching the air and startling everyone around him.
That's the best news I've had since we landed here.
But that's not all, Singh continued, his grin traveling through the comm channel without need of video.
Don't ask me how the hell he did it, but he got his hands on a full set of schematics for that warship's wormhole drive. That's right, the one that allowed it to travel through time. He managed to transmit them to us. I forwarded them to Dr. Patel right before I called you. You might get an excited call from him any time now, sir.
White was struck dumb for a moment.
Say again?
Was all he could manage.
I know, sir. It might take a while for Dr. Patel and the other boffins back there to build it, but we're going home.
White collapsed into his seat, not daring to believe this change in their fortunes.
It's not all chocolates and flowers, though, Major.
White's spirit wilted just slightly.
Go on, Lieutenant. Obviously, Captain Douglas is out there alone and on the ground, sir. It's hard to imagine being in more danger. And so,
sensing Singh's reticence, White prompted again.
Lieutenant? Captain Baines has taken one of the lifeboats and gone after him, sir.
Oh. White had been expecting worse.
Isn't that good news? I'm not sure about that, sir.
How so?
Well, there's still the matter of the small attack vessel the enemy has in their possession, sir. One we destroyed in orbit, another was severely damaged during Commander Gleason's stampede, but a third is still missing.
How do we know that?
Commander Gleason's team heard it take off, sir. Apparently the engines were extremely loud, so it's probably military spec. Chances are it's another orbital attack vessel. Either its pilot will notice he or she can't get a response from the battleship, or maybe they even managed to get off a distress call. Regardless, that ship will be on its way back, and the captain is completely alone and, as I said, on the ground. Captain Baines has gone to search for him in an escape pod. She may as well have gone to war in a golf cart, sir.
I assume you brought this to her attention.
Certainly did.
And?
Made no damn difference at all, sir.
Didn't you try to stop her?
Of course, sir. But when Captain Baines makes up her mind, she gets that look, and it's best just to stand back, as our enemy have just found out. Who'd have thought it possible to destroy one of the deadliest warships ever built with a few pygmy dinosaurs, some cables, and a flying van?
White rubbed his hands down his face in resignation.
Understood.
If you still have sensors, keep a bead on her. Our little group is getting fragmented, and that makes me nervous in this crazy world full of enemies and monsters.
Agreed, Major, Singh replied reasonably. But with respect, Captain Douglas is out there alone in that crazy world now, and somehow he still managed to hand us a way home.
You're right, of course. I just hope he's okay. I hope they're both okay. We'll get everything ready over here and come and get you at sunup. It must have been a hell of a night. Well done, Sandy. Well done to all of you. White, out.
Revenge, Book 2 in the New World series. Written by Stephen Llewelyn and performed by Chris Barrie. New installments are uploaded weekly. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like or comment. Visit the link in the description for free New World companion stories, available for download as ebooks.